Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Homeless men, the modern hermit. Is it wrong to be homeless? To be jobless and aimless in pursuing a career? To be a neat ostracized from society? Why live and work when you can be a hermit? Life is simple. God made is simple, yet we self-righteously wanted awareness, to add complexity to where it's not needed. Jesus summed up everything perfectly. For us to be virtuous and simple, to be innocent and simple, like in the garden, to make simple homes, to have pure, simple love, to not seek truth as everything we need resides in us. What truth do you seek? What is a truth the earth has not provided to you that you may not know, that you don't need to know? Other than your selfish, non-necessitous knowledge you seeked for your own pride or greed. We are like God, but we may never be God. So be loving and pious, and just maybe you will spit out the seeds of sin that were once eaten.
Unfortunately, it's very difficult to live an ascetic lifestyle in the West ATM. We are too deep into capitalism. Nothing necessarily wrong with it, but most homeless these days are addicts or seriously mentally unwell. The Kerouac-esque romantic hobo is kind of a dead dream. Society has just become too insular and expensive to live that kind of life, and the Ted K. Cabin LARP isn't any more realistic, simply because humans are not meant to be solitary. We rely on cooperation for survival. Unless you are highly skilled, the reality would be more like turning a domesticated animal loose into the wild. Best thing to do IMO is find a means to support yourself but live within your means, stay detached from the rat race, etc. But you do need money. Don't feel bad about it, it's just the nature of your environment. In the future, I think there will be a demand for communal-style living. There will probably be more homesteads popping up and maybe even monastic communities. But for now, just keep your head down. Or don't, up to you, man. I think the ideal man is homeless but doesn't do any drugs or alcohol. Healthy diet, this is very hard to do. Good appearance, this is also very hard to do. Works out. Never complains. Never begs for money. This would be an ideal. Most homeless there don't want to be there. They are more similar to a dirt stain of the ugliness of the world. They are nothing like the Brahmins or the shamans of old. They hold no beauty. A based hobo would actually be there by choice and not be influenced by the elements of homelessness into ending up insane or addicted to booze or crack. A based hobo would be a holy man.
I've always found it poetic that historically being homeless, especially in more ancient times, was a signifier of wisdom and sagacity, and now it is reserved for the societally dispossessed and mentally self-destructive. Many seem to ignore or omit the fact that one of the core adherences to the middle way is homelessness and begging, of which the Buddha rather exhaustively mentions and reminds throughout the suttas. While no doubt there are indeed wise homeless people in America, that was likely never their top priority or intention for becoming homeless.
I lived out of my car for 2 years. Used to take showers with a gym club membership and used a storage rental space as a closet. Car was my bedroom. Saved thousands on rent and had more free time to do whatever I wanted. Coffee shops and libraries were the life. Enjoyed parks as well. All while you wages slave away to meet your exorbitant rent payments. It was the freest time of my life. Used to be in IT, web development. Aged put and ended up in retail hell. Part-time work. Men are disposable and society doesn't give a shot about you. Look after yourselves.
How does one live a modern hermit lifestyle? Maybe not the classic living in the woods with no contact with society, but instead just being able to afford living alone without the need to interact with people. Like seeing the same people at work and forcing yourself to engage in minimal interaction. I'm burnt out. My soul wasn't meant to live the wage cage lifestyle. Everyone seems content, but not me. I want out, and I feel better when there's no people around.
I live near a river which is perfect as it is a reliable source of food and drinking water if boiled, then filtered properly using a cloth, sand, charcoal, and gravel. I would also add some chlorine or iodine to it just for extra precaution. There are some islands on the river that I can kayak to camp on. No one goes back there at all aside from other kayakers. Since I'm self-employed, I can use my money to purchase MREs online and stuff I'll need from in town to lessen my burden. I am getting a 4-season tent and a 4-season sleeping bag to protect myself from the elements while I build a rain and wind shelter for the tent and a latrine. I'll be using some of the trees on the island. No one would complain about illegal logging and building because no one gives a damn about these islands. It's a small town in the middle of nowhere. No one would complain because for all they know, I'm just camping. They probably wouldn't even see me, so I have absolutely zero worries about getting caught. If the cops come, I can pretty easily explain that the wood I used was from sticks and trees that had already fallen. Therefore, no destruction of government property. I don't think they'd slap me for trespassing on the island because it is public land. These islands are also at a high elevation from the water, which is perfect. The river is generally low in points surrounding the island, and the island itself is super close to the mainland, so it would be ideal to place stepping stones on the riverbed in order to access the island and to leave. I have so many ideas on what I'd do with it, I'm practically foaming at the mouth. I know I could leave all this behind any day now and become super hobo, but I'm not ready yet. I still have some supplies I need, like kayak outriggers, so my vessel will be able to support extra weight. I would make all other hobos look like bums.
I got a story I've been wanting to tell for a while. Not too spooky, but involved an old friend of mine who passed away, so I have a fondness for this story. Have an older family friend. He was a bit of a hermit, a lifelong bachelor, only involved with my family. He never had any interest in paranormal things, so it was strange when he told me about the experiences he was having. I never had any reason to disbelieve him. His only hobby was collecting antiques. His home looked like a museum. It was always fascinating visiting his home. Tons of priceless artifacts of Americana just displayed in heaps everywhere. Finally, he gained his most prized antique, an old schoolhouse. He purchased this one-room schoolhouse, since divided into a few separate rooms, from the city. All brick, complete with bell tower and school bell. No idea how old it was. It was in disrepair, but he loved it nonetheless. He sold his old home and moved into the schoolhouse. As soon as he moved in, strange things started happening. He kept being woken up by door slams in the night. This eventually escalated to loud crashes and explosions. For example, he heard his china cabinet fall and shatter. When he went to check it, it was fine and intact. He thought it was neighbors or outside noise, but couldn't find a source. He was plagued by these noises all night long and couldn't sleep. Fast forward a few weeks later. He tells me he solved his ghost problem. After the latest series of phantom crashes, he stepped into the main room and simply spoke out loud. "Listen, I know you love this house. I love it too. I promise you I will fix it up, I just need time." No more sounds the rest of the night. The very next night, he woke up again. This time it's the sound of light guitar strumming coming from the attic. I asked if he investigated, or was scared. Tells me he just laid there and enjoyed it. He said it played for about an hour and the song was nice. Nothing weird has happened since.
My own story. I was 24, had no home then, slept at my family's home when they let me. I have liked scary stories since I was a kid. One night, get drunk and sad because of depression. Decide to leave forever and become a hermit. Get my 2 dogs. Head into the woods behind my home. I live in a rural area, not in a big city. There are tall hills behind my house with forests. Not scared because there is a lot of noise, like owls and my dogs walking next to me. Walk on and on. Climb on top of a hill because it was funny. Sun sets. It is dusk. Less drunk. Think about how I will sleep. And I'm afraid because I read too many stories when I was a kid. My dogs will protect me. They are loyal. Find space under a fur and make bed. One dog stays next to me, the other walks away. He will maybe hunt and bring back food when I wake up. Fall asleep with an empty belly, terrible feeling. I wake up. It is a dark night now. Angry because I want to sleep until the sun rises. The dog next to me is asleep. Other dog is not back. Think where he is. But he is maybe still hunting. Stay close to sleeping dog. Try to fall asleep again. The trees are making noise. I do not think about it, I sing in my mind. Hear a little cry. It sounds like an animal. Sit up. Maybe my dog is back with the rabbit. I don't see anything. Wake up my dog next to me and walk toward the noise. Nothing. I continue walking with my dog following. See moving in the corner of my eyes. Make lots of noise in the leaves if it is a wild animal to make it leave. Hear another new cry, like the time my old dog had babies. Walk toward noise. Look behind me, my dog is not there. Hear a sound like a word a little far away. Get the cold shivers. Walk slowly back to camp. I can't find it again. Find a big rock. Sit behind him and wait. I hear something tall making noise around me. I fell asleep. I wake up and the dog is biting me. It is still night. Stand up. Dog starts to run. Run toward him because I trust the animal instinct. Keep running away for 10 minutes. Walk quickly away. Keep walking until the sun rises more and it's morning. Other dog joins us. He looks okay. Decide the adventure is over and follow the first stream I find out of the forest.
This is not a spooky story, but I thought you'd appreciate it anyway. Here's the background. I'm in my early 30s. I live in a very rural part of Wales, just outside a small village, on a small holding that was left to me. I have lived alone since it became mine, and I continue to run the place just as before. We've pigs that I sell before Christmas, some chickens whose eggs I sell myself, and that's basically it. If it weren't for government grants for land going empty, I wouldn't be able to manage. My land is about a mile away from the village proper and bisected by a lane, house and main shed on one side, thankfully some small buildings, and the chickens on the other side, fields all around. The area in general is lightly forested, and the lane is a beautiful walk on a nice day. You may even get to see some deer. Needless to say, there's no streetlights of any sort. Anyway, here I go. Been living alone here, just me and the animals, for about 5 years now. Growing up working the farm led me to be distant, I think, and I've always been busy, so after school I had little time to socialize. This has caused me to be a bit of a hermit. One night I'm out getting coal from the shed across the road and have stopped to have a smoke and admire the night sky when I start to hear some kids talking and laughing, coming up the road toward my place. I think nothing of it and finish my cig before picking up my coal sack and heading for the gate. Step onto the road, walk a small distance to the gate to my yard. Just as I turn into my yard, I see the kids, 3 of them, messing around the side of my house. Break into a shout and wave my heavy bag of coal around, saying words to the effect of, "You little shits, get out of here," but in Welsh. They freeze and start screaming, then run further into my property and round the back of my house. I follow and they give me the slip, running back up the other side and out onto the road, shrieking all the way. Couple days later, and I'm visiting a friend of mine in the village for a catch-up. His kid is a young teen now and not one of the ones messing about around my place, but he's heard a ghost story and his dad tells him to tell it to me. There's a ghost hanging around that old place outside the village. Hen Din Glow, he's called. He's really nasty and vicious, and he chased after Dylan and Rich. It's pretty funny, I think. Obviously, they're talking about what happened at my place the other night. I'm Hen Din Glow. It means old man coal. I personally find this hilarious.
I have a strange story for you guys. I am not sure if it was paranormal. Maybe I just met some weird hermit or something. Be me, autist from Germany. Go for a hike and an overnight stay in the woods alone. The German woods are hyper safe. No wild animals, no chance of getting lost. The worst thing that could happen is being caught wild camping and getting a warning from the police. Leave a hiking path and walk straight into the woods. Set up a cozy camp. Start digging a small fire pit. Suddenvoice.jpg. Look up. There is an old dude sitting on a root. Dude was gray-haired with a ZZ top, long scruffy beard, wearing a long mantle or robe and a big floppy hat. Normally nothing to worry about. Weird old people are everywhere. But I kid you not, this dude had a spear. We stared at each other for a few seconds. There was no aggression in his face, but he kept one eye closed the whole time.
It's not safe here, said your camp elsewhere.
I just stood there for a moment and wasn't sure what to say. Dude stands up. That old dude was a freaking giant, easily 2 meters tall. I didn't argue and packed my junk. Don't want to be impaled by some grandpa with a spear. Slowly leave. Seconds later, rustling up in the trees. Look up. A large-ass tree branch crashes down where my camp was. That thing could have wrecked me. Look up from the tree branch. Old dude was gone without making a sound. It was too weird for me, so I hiked back to my car and went home. I marked the area with a red circle. The name of the forest is Spessart.
In the USA, they call it welfare, so the homeless people that are not on welfare are people the government wants dead. Why pay one homeless person and not the other? Because the USA government wants people dead. Agenda 21, the plague death toll and uncounted deaths, migrant crisis, or replacement. Homeless people only live about 5 years on the streets. Now you have a drug crisis, no one talks about killing off most people. How do you have a 350 million population and can't make weapons for Ukraine to fight a war? Because the population is only 100 million and migrants from other countries.
Yes, and ironically and interestingly enough, the fentanyl comes from China, redistributed through Mexican cartels. Like a dish of historical revenge for the opium wars we forced on China served brutally cold, apparently now being laced with the potent tranquilizer xylazine, making it even more potentially lethal and even harder to revive someone from if they overdose. Once you realize a cover depopulation agenda is likely in the works and has been for decades, it becomes rather horrifying, and you see it subtly present in practically all features of modern industrialized Western life, from genetically engineered food to artificial dyes and sweeteners, and the rest of the toxic crap that's added to hyper-processed food, junk food in general, drug trafficking to fund military intelligence agency black ops while simultaneously killing off the weakest of society susceptible to it, endocrine disruptors that reduce fertility in everything from BPA in plastic water bottles to receipt paper, absorbed through the skin to pharmaceutical runoff in tap water. I could rant on indefinitely, but my sentences are getting too long, and that feels like enough. I wouldn't be surprised if the fentanyl crisis is deliberately being abetted and aided. The wide-open borders agenda, for instance, to precisely target the weak of society, including the homeless. The seemingly only major difference between modern Western industrial and technological first world life and some of the world's most brutal totalitarian regimes historically until today is that the West works much more covertly, subtly, slyly, seemingly benevolent towards their own citizens.
Kill them with obesity, strokes, and cardiovascular events instead of engineered famines like the Holodomor. The term Holodomor, death by hunger in Ukrainian, refers to the starvation of millions of Ukrainians in 1932 to 33 as a result of Soviet policies. Merging food corporations with the governmental regulatory boards like the FDA to allow them to mass produce and sell people poisonous, addictive food, for instance. Reduce the population by subtly reducing male fertility over a long period of time with endocrine disruptors instead of outright having a brutally enforced one-child policy like the Chinese. Outsource censorship and attack of private citizens with dissenting views to apparently privately owned independent news media, social media and big tech corporations, and banks, which secretly often end up to be working hand in hand with governments and intelligent agencies anyway, for instance.
I was raised as a Buddhist, started meditating at a single-digit age, was vegetarian, had an incredibly positive spiritual footprint, so to speak. Then came teens. Rebelled hard, party hardy, Mr. Popular, went full-on hedonist, sex, drugs, partying constantly, was a real whirlwind. Started to see the errors of my ways, the path I was headed down, like a light switch turned off and rejected that lifestyle. Cold turkey. In comparison, I went full hermit. Not actually, but compared to my old self. Started working on my spirituality, but not actually knowing or understanding what was happening. Felt like Jeff Goldblum in The Fly. This part was a long, confusing process. Wandering in the dark, following hunches. Didn't have any reading materials. The internet wasn't like how it is now. Successfully completed shadow work and ego work. Much later was comfortable with my new self. Didn't actually take the same amount of effort as it did in the beginning. Saw that it was a viable path. Life was more peaceful and meaningful. All of this was maybe a 15 to 20 year process. Fast forward to approximately 1.5 years ago. Accidentally came across a book that supercharged my spirituality, like turbo, confirms many of my hunches, makes me feel less crazy. Actually explained a lot of what I went through, also who I am, etc. Now I'm here with you guys, trying to find the next step. Many things are screaming at me to move forward, but my gut says to wait for the right moment or person. I am now actually stifling my paranormal spiritual experiences, thinking of plugging back into the matrix, until I find the right moment, opportunity, person. In the meantime, I'm here trying to help others. That's as far as I'm going these days. It seems that I've regressed ever since the turbocharging. The common notion that I've gotten too much info too quickly. I believe I'm currently suffering from this, hence plugging back into the matrix.
Everything is becoming clear to me. The objects of thought and how they change and flow. How emotions exist on a higher level than us. It's like remembering an old address or the name of a friend. It's on the tip of your tongue, and the memory pushes through all at once like it was always there. It feels right. It feels like I am being pushed into directions for some reason. It hurts at first, but you are able to take more and more the stronger the pressure is. I don't know if I will still be sane in 5 years. My mind is as if it's being held underwater and absorbing information until it nearly bursts and then being thrust backwards into the air, heavier than last time. It's confusing and heavy. I feel swollen all over. I believe I am drifting away from my body but still tethered to it. I exist somewhere else and here at the same time. It's nauseating because the brain isn't made to receive this kind of information along with the massive quantities of it. The body needs its mind. When it's separated even a little, everything aches. Aside from that, it's okay. I am making progress into being able to live as an independent self-sufficient hermit where I can pursue this life, and because of my progress I feel very fulfilled. I know one piece of wisdom for sure, and that there really is something incredible out there. Whether God or the inner clockwork of reality, it's something unimaginable but yet extremely personal to us. There's no reason for apathy or fear because of this.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.